A legendary franchise igniter, a movie that turned a household name into a powerhouse. The only Transformers movie from the Bush era, and it contains a joke about cracking your grandma's skull with a rock. This will not be a simple retrospective of the movie, but it'll also be about the toys that shaped our lives. I had the chance to reach out to Eric, the original toy designer, and ask him about the 2007 PTSD. This movie is as old as G1 was to us back in 2007. We are slowly but surely becoming Unk. So, let's go back to Transformers 2007 through my optics.
Keep that in.
Welcome everyone, this is Leo Legendary and today we're doing something new. It's stop motion, it's emotional, it's informational, it's scary because it's new. So let's go to part 1.
Before time began, there was a war on Transformers forums. Generation 1 loyalists were preparing to boycott the movie after witnessing leaked photos of Bay's Transformers. Threatening to keep the franchise frozen like Megatron, safely untouched by new ideas.
People were saying, oh, Michael Bay, you wrecked my childhood. Damn you, Michael Bay. After I read some of the posts that said they wanted to protest out of my office, they actually picked the wrong office because I moved. They didn't know my real address. So, and then the few little talkbacks where they said they want to hunt me down and kill me.
Now G1ers have more urgent things to think about, like their sodium intake. G1ers had no idea who this movie was going to impact for the long foreseeable future. That generation was me, and probably you watching this. But at the time, I was into these guys. In 2006 and 2007, Bionicle was still going pretty strong. It had just released the Inika and the Mari toy lines, which were, in my opinion, the peak of Bionicle's lifeline. But most importantly, it had a pretty fucking sick movie. My childhood friend Bill, who's basically my brother, was an avid watcher of the Cybertron TV show. And I wasn't really into it, but he was, and he owned a few toys, including Landmine and scrap metal. For Christmas, Bill gave me the Darth Sidious from the Transformers and Star Wars crossover toy line. And I have to say, aside from my default obsession with toys, I wasn't really impressed by it. It had a look only a mother could love. Jokes aside, I was an avid toy lover, so I basically loved every toy, unless I felt like I got the short end of the stick. This is high-key the part where I trauma dump on you guys, circa 2013 Draw My Life edition. But I have to say, I don't hear a lot of toy YouTubers talk about their personal lives. And, while toy collecting is literally a form of escapism for our sometimes pretty crushing realities, I still think there's worth in sharing a bit more about ourselves in order to draw a personal connection with these plastic dust collectors and how they actually influence us or can influence us. From 2003 to 2007, I was constantly moving. My dad had a series of very questionable and morally flexible jobs, and my mother worked at nail salons, and they hated each other, creating a very hostile and unstable home, so we kept moving over and over again. And every time I changed neighborhoods, I was basically forced to restart my life. For a kid, every detail in their house is a memory. Every corner they would accidentally run into, the fridge door that never fully closed, the tree outside, the Decepticon base under the green chair. By 2007, I had already moved to 6 different apartments, changed schools 3 times, and that summer, I had to say goodbye to friends I thought I was going to own a house with. And this time, it was pretty brutal. It felt like I had reached the limit in terms of resetting my life at the ripe age of 9. But here I was in my new place. The smell of fresh paint, the piercing sound of a buzzsaw, an ice cream in my hand, OG Rihanna playing on the radio. The next day came and went. But one night, I saw a TV spot for a movie.
You gotta get in the car. Trust me.
It was short, it was eerie, cool. I specifically remember Blackout transforming, and it was just the sickest thing I had ever seen. The marketing for Transformers 2007 was strangely mysterious. They promoted it like it was an alien invasion movie that was very loosely connected to a toy brand. I couldn't believe that this was the same Transformers as this. So much so that when I went to the theaters and I saw a poster for the movie, even though Transformers was written on it, I thought it was a different IP that just so happened to be also named Transformers. One night, Bill comes over and shows me a new toy he got. The 1974 Camaro Bumblebee. I was so jealous.
Where'd you get your car from, Ed? This car? Yes, how much did you pay for all this?
Bionicle was officially dethroned. But not long after that, I was at Walmart with my parents, and that was the first time I had witnessed the grand presence of a leader class. The box felt so premium and grand, the complex design and the rubber tires, the articulated fingers. I was finally introduced to the peacemaker who would eventually become a war criminal. Optimus Prime. I somehow convinced my dad to buy it in exchange to a very scary tantrum that fortunately ended when he stormed out of the house. I was 9, I couldn't really do much about that. But, you know what? A win is a win.
A win is a win. A win is a win.
Don't worry, I go to therapy. 18 years later, these are all I have left from the original toy line. And we will go through them all later. I wish I remembered more, but those were my memories with my nostalgic 9-year-old glasses. Where were you guys? What were you doing? What were your memories during that time? Comment below. Enter part 2. The Maker. The burning question you guys have been asking yourselves is, who designed Cybertron Landmine? Eric Siebenaler. Designer, illustrator, now a Hasbro legend. Why are we talking about Eric? Because he is the original toy designer for the Transformers 2007 toy line, along with designer-director Aaron Archer, who's also a legend. They've designed some of the most beloved Transformers toys that we grew up with. I wanted to go beyond nostalgia and see 2007 through another perspective, and not just any perspective, but one that is shaped by the very people who made those toys that we grew up with. Just like everyone, Eric grew up with cops. Yeah, we're just from different eras. But Eric got the whole 80s package. Transformers, He-Man, G.I. Joe. He also made sure to specify that he also touched grass and was a nature boy who simply sought adventure. He was an athlete, became a football team captain, and eventually he joined the army as a tank driver, conducting an M1A1 Abrams, which is also Brawl's tank model.
M1 Abrams tank. It's set to be a thrilling match. Shh.
But within Eric's core, he was an artist. His mom would say, "Son, you learn how to draw before you can even form a sentence." One day, Brian Chapman of Kenner gives a presentation at the university Eric was attending. It was a presentation about beast machines and beast wars. But that day, all became one.
I just really wanted a job. They basically gave me an internship just to get me to shut up.
Fast forward, Eric learns from the Takara Tomy team. Eric finds a position with Aaron Archer, designer-director. The two would become Hasbro's Jesse Pinkman and Heisenberg. Starting with Transformers Armada. Following the inevitable success of Revenge of the Sith, Brian Goldner, former CEO of Hasbro, wanted Transformers to be the first to have a reverse license effect and have one of their own IPs battle their way into Hollywood. And then, Spielberg was attached. The premise was simple: a boy and his car. Eric and the team gave Michael Bay a Transformers 101 presentation explaining key concepts and characters and why they exist and why they do what they do. But Michael Bay had other plans. He already had his art team working on the designs and didn't really synergize with Eric's team for consultation. All Eric and Aaron could do was to suggest names based on the robots' personalities. For the first time, Eric felt invisible, like his voice didn't matter. Where does the bicep even start in this?
The art department was working on for Optimus. You can see that he was a lot more blue, and even the vehicle parts were kind of disappearing, particularly the tires were uncoiling. And those are just things that were going to become issues for us to make product of. One of the things that Transformers is not is morphing. They are transforming. So pieces have to go somewhere. On the product side, with real plastic, my team has physics to contend with. That did present kind of a design challenge that we threw back to the production team. And they realized that, and I think we got to a happy place for everybody.
Little did we know, Bumblebee would end up looking like a f***ing Bionicle.
Hey, they made the movie stuff, we make the toy stuff. Simple? Sure. But not when the designs look like this.
Toy production works completely different from 3D art. A single Transformers toy could take up around 18 to 24 months from conceptualization to shelf. Any revision could significantly slow down the process, which would force crunching hours. And guess what? None of these time slates were respected by Bay's team.
And the stakes were high. We really didn't know success was guaranteed.
Eric and his team were left hanging and guessing what the final designs would eventually look like, which means that they had to base a lot of the toys on inaccurate designs, which explains a lot.
You know, I would take some of the constructive criticism of stuff they saw. I actually changed Megatron's face when they opposed to it that much.
At least we didn't get that. Something I found really interesting was finding this concept art, which possibly explains the Bumblebee big stompers that actually made it to the final toy. As you can see with these big feet. Big feet. On top of that, they had to coordinate with car companies to make sure that they were satisfied, but all they had were prototypes that were unfinished, and they didn't know that they were prototypes, so that created unnecessary tension. They would eventually get the rhythm of things, but that was the first movie, and so I asked Eric, what was a good memory amidst all of this?
Ah, yes. The good times? I would say being in the trenches with very capable Hasbro and Takara designers. The pressure was high, but we diligently cooked, rolled up our sleeves, and got to work. None of us came out of it unscathed, but we solved each problem with team effort. And honestly, it reminded me of the teamwork in the US Army. It was like a brotherhood. The shared struggle created a bond that remains difficult to replicate with others. This toy line sure is bittersweet for me.
And here we are, 19 years later. Hearing what went through creating these toys, what they were going through at the time while I was just a kid navigating my own world and finding comfort in those Transformers was pretty interesting. It's strangely cathartic. And the strange thing is that it's very consumer driven. It's like they're toys. But I think that's what makes it so special, but also at the same time difficult to put into words. I spent so much time experimenting and just wasting time playing with these. They've seen so much terror, lab rats to my first trials of toy customizing, pretty harsh beatings to cultivate my inner storytelling skills. My favorite being the concept Camaro, which was a huge deal. The car wasn't even a real car when it was used for the movie. It's just a huge upgrade from the 1974 Camaro. The orange yellow, the translucent windows, the articulation. It was just so hyped. I was salivating for this toy and I just couldn't find it anywhere for weeks and weeks. I ended up finding it at Canadian Tire. Within the same wave as Bumblebee was an underrated gem, the concept art RC. This is genuinely a cool design, beautifully translated into a toy. This must have been one of the nightmarish designs that Eric was talking about. But somehow, they found a way to make her wear high heels. The sheer power of pushing gender norms onto a figure, and actually making it work.
One of the only female robots in the Transformers lore, and she actually almost made it into the movie, but for some reason they couldn't quite get the plot line correct, so maybe we'll see her in future movies to come.
And I will die on a heel defending Doritos Starscream. I just think this design goes super hard. They had absolutely no reason to make him so weird looking, yet here I am fanboying over this almost 20 years later. They would eventually make a better one in 2018 with the Studio Series Starscream, painfully distinguishing the concept art from the final design. At this point, the 07 Starscream really has become its own thing. While I'm the most attached to Leader Optimus, the best Leader class figure has to be Brawl. But it was finally dethroned by the recent movie masterpiece. Just have to pay 4 times the price. He actually still holds up to this day, scales way better than the Studio Series one, and it's just a whole army in itself. It has lights, sounds, and a monstrous weight.
As for me, I don't really have a favorite, but I would say that I like Jazz. He had a simple design, and he turned out to be a pretty cool guy.
Oh god. The rest are okay. This is where I see what Eric meant by...
I'm proud of the work the team accomplished, but we were building all the toys from unfinished concept art, so not everything looked right. To me, it kind of felt like a failure.
Nostalgia aside, who's catching strays? Ratchet and Megatron. I just thought they were the least fun of the bunch. Ratchet looks like he just ate Bumblebee, and the concept art weapon doesn't help because it looks like a fan for his big back. And Megatron is just a block of spikes, and anytime a toy has some sort of spring-loaded mechanic in their feet, it's no bueno. It feels volatile and you never know when it'll work against itself. I do find it funny how the skull for Optimus Prime's shoulders were reused in Ironhide's cheeks. I always thought I was so smart for noticing that. This movie and the toys helped me endure pretty big changes and pretty big ugly things happening around me while I was very young. I was also very lucky to have had my good old friend Bill. To have somebody share this experience with, even though he puked all over my kitchen counter. Yeah, that happened. But it is especially an important time because I discovered stop motion animation. This was the first time I was exposed to the idea of making stop motions. I would only give it a try 3 years later, but this was the genesis. And the rest is history. As for Eric, it was an important time because it taught him that money did not bring happiness, and a break is often needed. He eventually found his solace within the Transformers IP when he worked on the toy line for Transformers Animated, which was the light in his darkest hour. More on Transformers Animated, but later. It is my favorite Transformers TV show. Eric and a bunch of other creators have worked a lot on keeping its legacy alive, and we will too. As I continue my career in filmmaking, I've also written and directed a short film about a woman whose breakup jeopardizes her chances to buy a house. And so she decides to fall into a nostalgic rut, going on a quest to find this Optimus Prime, which was her childhood Optimus Prime toy.
This is actually the wrong toy. You're bringing the wrong toy, man.
But the tape is still on there, though.
The tape don't matter. Like, anybody can get a tape and put it some. Look at this. Here's a tape.
I think he's bullshitting.
Look at that. Here's tape. What are you bullshitting? There we go.
Yeah, that's something I did. This movie continues to be part of my life, and I don't really know if that's a good thing. Transformers is kind of going down, but Eric Siebenaler is coming back to Hasbro for Transformers. I don't know. We'll see. Michael Bay is working on another Transformers movie. Shia LaBeouf was arrested in New Orleans.
It's Mardi Gras. That's why, bro. I was drunk and it's Mardi Gras. It's Mardi Gras, you know?
Are we about to step into a new renaissance or into a perpetual nostalgia hell? Are we the new G1ers? What happened to Risk? What happened to expansion and Transformers? Well, it happened and nobody want to see it. Comment below your personal anecdotes. I would love to read through your stories with this toy line or with just your life around that time. I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of this new series. Godspeed. I need a beer. That's what I need. I need a goddamn beer.
Alright, bye.
Here's another thing that will ruin your day is the fact that the society is ran by PDF files. Oh, and here's something that'll ruin your day. Oh, and here's something.
Alright.
Through my optics.
Welcome everyone. This is Leo and today I'm trying something new.
Welcome everyone.